Pro for everyone. That's the tagline that GameSir have used to promote their latest controller, the Cyclone 2. On the Pro side of things, it offers micro switch hair triggers, 2 programmable back buttons, GameSir's MagRes TMR thumbsticks, and a 1000Hz polling rate mode. While on the For Everyone side of things, it is compatible with a number of devices, PC, Nintendo Switch, iOS and Android most notably. But is it Pro for you? Well, in today's video we aim to find out. To do this, we will be reviewing the GameSir Cyclone 2 in 4 categories, talking pros and cons in each, all before giving my overall thoughts at the end. At this point, I'll quickly mention that this controller was sent to me for the purposes of this review, but as always, this has had no impact on the content of this video or my views expressed in it. If you do find yourself suitably impressed, I have left the product linked for the Cyclone 2 in the video's description. Now, with all of that out of the way, let's get into it. So yeah, we are going to be taking the Cyclone 2 to task in 4 categories, starting with the price, including what you get with a purchase, as this is an important factor for making a decision on a controller. Secondly, the design and key features, talking general aesthetics and any of the controller's main attributes. Thirdly, the customization, touching on the GameSir companion app and anything you can do to make the gamepad your own. And then finally, the playtest, how is it under use? Let's roll right into it and talk about the price. And in the UK, it will set you back around £50. The US, $60, and in the EU, around €55. Although there will be some early bird deals, so you will find it a little cheaper. So what's included with a purchase then? Well, of course, we have the controller. This charging dock display stand, a USB Type-C charging cable, USB dongle for connecting to PC, a bunch of stickers, and the instruction manual, which has all of the important information on how to connect the Cyclone to your devices and anything else you may require. Taking a quick look at a few of the accessories, and I'm super pleased to see this charging dock included. It looks great and has some real heft to it. Functionally, it serves its purpose, but it also works as an eye-catching display stand. It has a USB-C port at the back as well as a standard USB on the front. The charging cable is pretty basic, and although this is a wired controller, it would have been nice to see a cable more similar to the one provided with the GameSir Khaled, for example, for those that would prefer wired play. Next, we have this super small GameSir branded USB dongle for all of our high-speed wireless needs. The Cyclone 2 is measuring up to be a pretty great deal so far. A very affordable price and some decent accessories thrown into the bundle. The charging stand being the highlight for me. But this is being touted as a pro controller, so let's talk about its pro attributes. Let's move on to the design and key features. Starting with the general aesthetics, and we have a largely identical design and form factor to that of the GameSir Khaled that I reviewed recently. We have a similar partly translucent shell which emphasises the RGB lighting, although the Cyclone is more limited than the Khaled in this case. We have a standard Xbox layout, offset thumbsticks, A, B, X, Y buttons, view, menu and share, as well as an M button used for activating turbo as well as other functions like binding your back buttons. And speaking of the back buttons, on the rear of the controller we are greeted by 2. Yes, I know, many of you are desperate for GameSir to give us 4, but 2 is the sweet spot for me personally. They are placed well and will be familiar if you have used any of the G7 line of gamepads. I would have liked to see some slight texturing on them, but not a big miss if we're being honest. And I am pleased to say that we do find a texture grip on both the triggers as well as the bumpers. Which sounds obvious, but it often surprises me how many times this is lacking. I am also very pleased to see more texturing on the side grips, which wrap from the back onto the front of the controller. It's subtle but effective and more hard wearing than a rubberized finish. You may have also noticed the grooves on the top of the controller. This is designed for an attachment, so you can mount your phone for mobile play. A nice addition, but I'm not sure many will use this feature in all honesty. For me, I love the look of the Cyclone 2. It's sleek, and with the eye test, certainly does look more premium than other similarly priced gamepads. Starting off, we have to mention the cross-platform functionality. It does skip Xbox, but it is compatible with PC, Switch, Android and iOS, and as such definitely has a sizable part of the market covered. Next, an addition I've craved for a while on a GameSir pad like this, micro switch triggers, allowing for a more instant trigger pull. This is achieved by simply flipping the switch right under the trigger to move from Hall effect analog triggers to an instant micro switch hair trigger setting. I'm not gonna lie, I love these. They're satisfying to use and have an awesome clickable sound. Sometimes it can be a little tough to actually get my thumb in to toggle the mechanism, but not really a problem unless you're in a hectic moment while playing. And I do have a slight concern about how they will hold up against the players that really pull down on their triggers. But for me, a definite win. Another feature worth talking about is the GameSir MagRes TMR Thumbsticks. Now, what are these, I hear you ask? Well, basically they are better Hall effect thumbsticks, meaning we get the safety in knowing that we should not receive stick drift, similarly to Hall effect, but also greater precision thanks to the better tracking, much more in line with potentiometer sticks. Now, another pro feature is the back paddles, basically a must-have for competitive shooters these days, really opening up new possibilities while playing. As mentioned earlier, we have two. Not a problem for me, but let me know in the comments if this is a deal breaker for you. I've seen so many asking for 4 paddles. Rounding out some of the other highlights, and we have a 1000Hz polling rate mode when played on PC, both wired and wireless thanks to the added 2.4 GHz low latency dongle. We also have RGB lighting, a 860 mAh built-in battery, a turbo mode, haptic feedback, as well as motion controls, which is great for compatible Switch titles. In this section, we have to admit that the Cyclone 2 does have a number of attractive pro features, and thanks to the cross-platform functionality, it is pretty much for everybody. Well, unless you play on Xbox, PlayStation, or need 4 back paddles, that is. But it's time to move on to our third review section and talk about the best ways you can fine-tune the Cyclone 2. Let's talk about the customization. All of the customization for the Cyclone 2 is done by chiefly using the free companion app, GameSir Connect, an easy and powerful tool that really lets you get into the weeds and tune this puppy up. But first we will start with the aesthetic customization and talk about the RGB. GameSir Connect has some pretty cool presets available. I'm a particular fan of the rainbow mode if I'm being honest. But you can pair pretty much any colour combo you wish, modify the brightness, or if you're not one for RGB and find it distracting, just turn it off, no problem. Delving deeper into the app, and we can of course bind our preferable back paddles, but more interestingly, set our thumbsticks and trigger dead zones. Slightly less important now as we do have hair triggers. While we can also set up custom profiles and excitingly choose our polling rate, which should give us a better experience in action. All in all, I've been pretty impressed with GameSir Connect. It's laid out well, simple to use, and lets me fine tune to suit my playstyle. However, maybe it would have been cool to have seen some additional thumbsticks thrown into the bargain, just to heighten the customization, but nothing that a set of control freaks can't fix. So again, a nice showing in this section. We've gone through 3 sections so far and we haven't been let down yet. But let's move on to arguably the most important part of my videos, the playtest. How is the Cyclone 2 under use? First, we should start with actually connecting the controller. Once I was paired, everything worked as intended, with no drops in connection. However, I would say sometimes I did have a bit of trouble connecting, and had to try a couple times before the pairing was completed. But again, once I was connected, I had no problems. In hand, it feels pretty nice. It is slightly smaller than a standard Xbox gamepad and seems a little larger than a G7, if you are familiar with that controller. But for me with slightly larger hands, it still sits securely in my grip, helped by the textured side grips. The back paddles are placed well, and I haven't found myself having accidental button presses, which can sometimes be the case with this implementation of back buttons. But with that being said, even though I did mention I'm fine with 2 back paddles, I would like to see 4 in a future controller. It just leads to more possibilities in-game. Touching on the TMR thumbsticks, and while I will admit, as with trying out any new controller, it takes a bit of perseverance and fine-tuning to find what feels best to yourself. But they do feel and play well. A nice amount of tension and a snappy response really made me enjoy using them. The triggers are a personal highlight for me. I've always enjoyed GameSir's Hall effect triggers, but these ones upgraded with a micro switch option are up there with some of my favourite hair triggers. Almost instant with a satisfying clicky actuation. I'm a fan. although I don't love the implementation of the mechanism to switch between trigger options. On PC, I decided to try the Cyclone 2 on some Black Ops 6, and I had a really fun time. The triggers performing well, and even after an hour or so, I didn't feel the controller uncomfy or beginning to slip, even though I do suffer from sweaty hands. On Switch, it again performed well. I mainly use my Switch for those Nintendo exclusives, and also side-scrollers and indie games, that I feel are just better suited there. For these games I had no problem, and the D-pad is more than up to the job. I also spent some time on mobile playing over Bluetooth to my iPad. Other than the slight trouble I had connecting to the device, everything went well. Playing over Bluetooth isn't always ideal, but again, I never noticed any drops of connection. Before we finish this section, for those competitive gamers out there, you might be asking, is the Cyclone 2 a viable option here? And for my money, I think so. GameSir's Hall Effect thumbsticks have been a go-to for many gamers, while the TMR thumbsticks installed on the Cyclone 2 look to improve in this area. And the addition of the hair triggers really does help get that shot off a little quicker. It also helps that it has that all-important high polling rate and low response time, a step up from many controllers on the market. Now, with 4 review sections covered, what's my overall thoughts on the Cyclone 2? Well, it's pretty easy to see that I've been impressed. We have a good package with a very affordable price. Some of the best pro features seen in any GameSir controller so far are paired with versatile compatibility with many devices. Now, that isn't to say it's perfect. I don't love the switch on the triggers to activate the micro switch setting, and it would have maybe been cool to be able to adjust the tension on the thumbsticks. But overall, when you tally everything up, this is a sleek looking gamepad at a nice price point, with micro switch triggers, RGB and a 1000Hz polling rate setting. And for me, it's definitely worth checking out. But hey, as with any of these videos, this is just my thoughts, and I want to hear what you think about the Cyclone 2. Is this the GameSir controller you've been waiting for? Are you fine with PC and Nintendo Switch? Or are you looking for something more compatible with, say, an Xbox for example? G7 Pro. Remember to let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and again, check the description for a link to the product. And while you're down there, remember to hit that like button and consider subscribing for more controller reviews just like this one. But that's it guys, that's the video, thanks so much for watching, but until the next time, I'll catch us.